Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where Marvel has finally stumbled. People thought it would never happen, but it's happened. And of course, Star Wars and DC are still trying to clean up their mess. We'll see what happens. But the other studios and their franchises are finally not only able to find a way to coexist in the space, but actually thrive. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Of course, the problem remains that even when they do extraordinarily well, they can't deliver the same level of box office and fan engagement that, Star Wars, Marvel, and DC can do. But Top Gun Maverick gave the industry hope. It gave the industry hope. And we'll see if they can continue to find a way to coexist with those mega franchises. And we'd love everyone to do well. That's, of course, the ideal scenario. Now, warning, there are slight spoilers for Scream in this video because I want to discuss potential contract negotiations going forward. Slight spoilers, very slight, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Why didn't you see Scream 6 this weekend? Everybody else did. So yes, another franchise hits an all-time high opening weekend without its signature star. Mindy's right. Legacy characters are expendable. All that matters is the IP. The Hollywood studios are like, excellent. And I even talked about in my review that by removing Neve Campbell, Ghostface became front and center. And I actually think that does a lot for the longevity of the franchise. And then Mindy has one crucial line where she says, these days in a franchise, everything needs to be bigger to keep audiences coming back. And you know who should pay attention to that? You know who should sit down for Mindy's TED Talk? Kevin Feige, Kathleen Kennedy, and Mr. James Gunn. Because Marvel movies, for example, are actually getting smaller, it seems. Remember, consistently, the most successful MCU movies have been Avengers or Avengers-esque entries. Important story points also work. Introduction of the Skrulls and/or a new character, right? Now, while audiences were certainly interested in Kang, particularly played by Jonathan Majors, the MCU movies and shows have become so bloated, even the most important storylines come across as diluted these days. Also, I think you have to be careful not to create a situation where your regular normie fan feels they can't keep up. I know a lot of people are feeling that way with the Marvel Disney Plus shows. They just feel like before, if they saw every movie, they were, part of the discussion. But, now it's a lot to keep up with. And then you feel, well, if I miss this, I guess I can miss this too. Marvel's secret sauce was that it had a large fan base that went to everything. And now I think that is maybe not so much the case anymore. Oh, it's scary days. Wait till we talk about Quantumania's latest box office numbers, or lack of. But even DC movies, I think, are getting smaller, and I think some of the things that have been introduced as potential upcoming projects seem a little on the small side. And that's not worked out so far. Joker 2 is at least clever enough to add Lady Gaga. We'll see how that musical idea works out for them. And we'll see if Matt Reeves also understands this simple rule of you gotta make it bigger. Back to Scream, directing duo Radio Silence certainly understood the assignment. That's what they call themselves. They have a team name, and I guess they are a team, and Radio Silence is certainly easier to remember than either of those gentlemen's names. I guess it's a little bit like also the Daniels, too, right? Who, of course, are up for Best Director for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think, it's not a bad idea if you want to be part of a directing duo. And Radio Silence is pretty good to remember. You know what else has people remember you? If you do good work. And Radio Silence certainly delivered with this. They did the last Scream, but this time they really did a good job. Delivering an edgier, scarier, and more aggressive entry than the franchise has ever seen. And shocker, the script was actually good. I wouldn't say it was even a great script, but it was a good script. And in these days, that's quite rare in Hollywood for some stupid reason as writers get ready to strike because Hollywood won't pay them. And Hollywood's like, do you think we could do AI scripts? And we're like, no. I mean, are you kidding me? The lack of respect that Hollywood has for screenwriters is shocking considering that they're so often undone by bad scripts. And you know what's really doing well these days for the most part? Streaming and television where writers are in control. So what are you guys doing over there? All right, Scream has also, although I think the Hollywood, to be honest with you, a lot of the reliance on AI is because development and production executives therefore can pass the buck to a computer. You saw a lot of shows being, Barry has discussed this in one of their seasons. A lot of suits will use AI to choose what projects to do because sometimes it works, and then also when it doesn't, they're like, well, fire your computer, because I listen to the computer. So that's all very interesting. All right, so Scream has also benefited from diversifying its cast, resulting in strong appeal across the board. The white and Latino audience was actually tied. That's very rare. And of course, Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega as Final Girl Sisters have helped. Final Girl Sisters is a really nice idea. I saw the movie again this weekend. I saw it with a late night crowd. Oh, I had a very good time. It was great. And by the way, Latino audiences have always been very supportive of the horror genre, and other franchises have tried to court them with installments that were almost entirely featuring a Latino cast. But I think Scream's diversification play has gone over much better. Also, I think the talent that they chose. For instance, they lucked out that Ortega is in the middle of a huge career blow-up thanks to Wednesday, which I'm sure has helped Scream as well. She even hosted SNL last night, which was a horrible episode. But you roll the dice when you host SNL. You never know quite what you're going to get. And while Jenna Ortega is incredibly talented, while she's a little bit like Aubrey Plaza in her style of delivery, I don't know if she's a comedian. Aubrey Plaza, Pedro Pascal, they did quite well on SNL, I think, because they have strong comedic chops. Pedro Pascal, also, by the way, finally, for a long time, the Latino audience has been, when's it going to be our turn? Well, I think you're having quite a turn right now, and it's exciting. And while the trades aren't talking about it, they should be. I'd like to add that the LGBT community has been a crucial factor in this franchise's continued success. When I went to see it again this weekend, a lot of LGBT fans in my audience. Who do you think's been driving most of the chatter on social media, and who will see this film, as they have the past films, multiple times? The LGBT community. And good for Scream for representing and paying it back with Jasmine Savoy Brown's Mindy, a key, fantastic character right in the middle of all the action. This entry with her girlfriend right beside her. And it's not like Scream 6 doesn't have legacy characters even without Neve Campbell. Hayden Panettiere returned, much to the delight of fans. And Neve Campbell's exit and Dewey's demise in Scream 5, I can't help if you haven't watched Scream 5 by now, but that has left Courtney Cox as the last OG legacy character and likely given her considerable bargaining power going forward. Courtney Cox is about to get paid. And that's not to say that Campbell can't still get paid. I don't know if she'll get paid quite as much as she wants, but they'll probably come up a little bit because, as Mindy said, they need to keep people interested. They need people to keep coming back. So Neve Campbell is going to come back at some point. Paramount's already racing ahead with Scream 7, perhaps even for next year. A Scream a year? It sounds crazy, but it's working. And in Scream 6, Mindy even drops the hint that she believes the theory that Matthew Lillard's Stu Macher is not actually dead. Oh, I'd love that to be the case. That's exciting. I hadn't even heard that was a fan theory, but now I'm 110% behind it. I think the meta aspects of the Scream franchise and the fact that it's able to laugh at itself and talk about the crazy stuff that franchises do significantly helps it to reinvent itself. So it's in a good position in that regard as well. Back to Paramount. Yes, this is another huge win for the studio, which is really finally becoming a Hollywood contender. It used to be back in the day. It used to be quite famous, particularly when Robert Evans ran it. Watch The Offer. It's such a good show. All right, but anyway, speaking of Paramount, that's made by Paramount. It's on Paramount Plus. But, usually we talk about Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery, and Universal. But last week, the big winner was MGM, now owned by Amazon. And this week, we're talking about Paramount. We're going to talk about Sony in just a minute. Successfully launching one Scream a year is shockingly impressive. And coming off of a strong 2022 with Top Gun Maverick as the crown jewel, nominated this evening for 6 Oscars, including Best Picture. Let's see if it wins any, but still, that's impressive. 2023 is looking equally strong, with Tom Cruise back with another Mission Impossible. Will Top Gun Maverick lift that franchise up? Plus, Dungeons & Dragons is getting rave reviews out of South by Southwest, set to hit theaters at the end of this very month. I have not seen it yet. As you can see, I'm not at South by Southwest, and I'm missing an upcoming press screening because I've got to see Shazam. I can't help it, they're the same night. And then another Transformers movie that actually looks pretty good is coming out this summer. And that Seth Rogen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, well, that looks real good. And of course, they have Sonic, which they're bringing back in 2024. So they're doing really well over there. Now, despite a franchise best opening, no Scream movie has made it to the century mark domestic since the first two. And last year's Scream fell almost 60% in its second weekend. These things burn bright and fast, baby. Smile, in comparison, also from Paramount, by the way, fell just 18% in its second weekend. It didn't open nearly as big, but it got to the century mark, whereas Scream last year did not. Scream 6 is really good, though, with strong audience scores. Both last year's Scream and this year's got B+ cinema scores, very strong for horror and for the franchise. The last few entries did not score as well. So we'll see how far it gets at the box office, but it should also do quite well on digital and streaming, which is all a very important part of the equation these days. Although, as Bob Iger has pointed out, streaming ain't making the same amount of money they'd hoped because they have to spend so much money to make money. And so they're trying to cut back on spending and refocus on some of the older distribution methods because they're more lucrative. Oh, it's fascinating. Netflix doesn't have a diversified portfolio. They just do a streaming service, and I think that benefits them to some degree. We're talking a lot about a surprising amount of deep dives on the business side today. I hope you're enjoying it. I certainly am. As for last weekend's champion, Creed 3, it fell a little more than 50% in its second weekend, losing some of its premium screens to Scream 6. As the movie release schedule picks up, particularly this month, and as we go into the summer, all these big movies only have the premium screens for one weekend. It's fun for me, though. I don't know if you're having a good time, but I'm hitting the premium screen every weekend, seeing a big new movie, and it's like before the pandemic. It's so much fun. It's even actually a little bit more fun because of the focus on premium screens and I think digital speeds up and makes things more intense. I think they're starting to find their groove. Creed 3 had the same second weekend drop as Creed 2, but the first Creed held just a little bit stronger, but not by much. So the franchise isn't showing explosive growth, but it is showing some growth. I don't think it's showing enough growth to support the kind of blow up that Michael B. Jordan has planned with Amazon. Anime and live action TV series spin-offs? I don't know about that. But sure enough, as I predicted in my review, Michael B. Jordan is getting ready to shine a spotlight on Creed's deaf daughter, Amara, who wants to follow in her father's footsteps. And I saw a fan suggest online Lauren Ridloff from Eternals, herself deaf in real life, who could play an adult Amara. That is a phenomenal idea. I love it so much. You should tweet that to Michael B. Jordan and company. I think that's fantastic, but I think she deserves better than a series, although series are pretty good these days, but I'd love to see her get a movie. I don't know if the Creed Rocky, I don't know if they can support shows. I think that's really a movie-only franchise, but we'll see. And then, I don't think everything needs to be a cinematic universe. I don't think everything can support it, to be honest with you. And then I'm even worried about The Boys trying to expand, quite frankly. I'm nervous, but Boys Season 4 is coming up, so that's all I'm going to focus on right now. And then speaking of other studios, as I said, let's talk a little bit about Sony too, which got a small win this weekend as 65 overperformed. It got a third place debut north of 10 million. Nobody thought it would hit double digits. Nobody. And yet here it is. This not only shows the power of dinosaurs, as I said in my 65 review where I called the movie not bad. Hey, look, I'm telling you, it's not bad. I was like, why doesn't anybody else make dinosaur movies outside of Jurassic Park? Hollywood's just leaving money on the prehistoric table. And I think other studios are going to see this and be like, wow. Again, it's like with the first Mortal Kombat. Now imagine if that movie was actually good. What could have happened? As I said, it's not bad. But what kind of money could we be making? It's fantastic news, though, also for Adam Driver's team. It seems when he's front and center, their boy might actually be a box office draw. It's been very hard to find actors who can bring in an audience out, by themselves. How many times has Hollywood tried to make Ryan Gosling happen? They're still trying to make Ryan Gosling happen. And I don't think it's ever going to happen, although I like him, but a lot of people don't care for him for some reason. It's like the Spider-Verse Puss in Boots animation. A lot of us are like, how can you not love this? But a large chunk of people go, you know what? I don't. But anyway, as for Adam Driver, a quirky actor who actually managed to survive his Star Wars experience, perhaps because he was willing to laugh at it. Oh, so funny. But he might actually emerge as a box office draw. Isn't that incredible? And what great timing, as he's up for the role of Reed Richards in the MCU. If he doesn't land it, which I think he should, but if he doesn't, after this opening weekend, another franchise will scoop him up. Because there's money here. There's clearly money here. I'd be like, what's Adam? And his availability seems pretty good. I'd be like, let's get him back in here. As for the MCU, Bob Iger is right. They need a shakeup over there. They got a little bit too comfortable. They rested on their laurels. And I'm sure the sobering box office numbers for Quantumania are starting a discussion over there. It might be behind closed doors, but these numbers are just too horrible to ignore. Look at these things. It's unlikely the movie will even be able to match the first Ant-Man's worldwide box office, and that was from 2015, almost a decade ago. Oh my God. And outside of MCU's pandemic movies, it's Marvel's lowest grossing film since the last Ant-Man movie, Ant-Man 2. And Bob Iger even said recently, not all characters deserve a trilogy. But why are we bothering Ant-Man? Why is it his fault? How about the behind-the-camera talent? As I've been saying for years, why do you keep giving Peyton Reed movies? And as I've also started to say, I'm beating this drum now, get rid of these Rick and Morty writers. Feige, it ain't show friends, it's show business. Get rid of these people. Why are they still here? It's incredible to see people fail upward in such an important franchise. I mean, you can still go to lunch with them. Don't make friends with your employees, man, because look what happens. I mean, this is nuts. This is nuts. As I keep saying, and I'll keep saying it, every day that Jeff Loveness from Quantumania writes Avengers Kang Dynasty, and Michael Waldron, who just got booted off of Star Wars, who did a horrible job with Multiverse of Madness, every day he's still on Avengers Secret Wars, is a death march for those two Avengers movies. And those are Avengers movies! This is just horrible. I don't understand why they're still on there. I think Jeff Loveness doesn't understand it either, but is holding his breath. As for the rest of the top 10, CB, rated R, is looking to tap out at about $60 million, it seems, and it's just in time as it hits digital this Tuesday, 17 days, baby, at $25 a pop. But I'm telling you, it's worth it. Fabulous film. So fun. And while critics didn't care for Champions, audiences loved it. Look at those audience scores. And that should also do strong business on digital shortly after a moderate box office debut. Remember, Focus Features is a division of Universal that's pushing that 17-day window. Puss in Boots 2, still in the top 10 at the box office, still in the top 10 on digital, and it just hit Peacock Premium on Friday at no extra cost. And yet it's still performing very well in the theatrical and digital space, a la carte space. That's incredible. What a movie. It deserves it. Love that movie. Over on streaming, starting with Nielsen for the second week of February, You Season 4 Part 1, Part 2 just dropped. It was incredible. Season 4 Part 1 powered the entire franchise to the top of the charts. Remember, Nielsen includes all seasons as one, which is super sketchy, and they shouldn't do that. But look how powerful it made You. While The Last of Us, on its first season with just a handful of episodes, that continues to grow. Now number 3 on the overall chart and number 2 on Acquired with over 1,000, a score of over 1,000 there with just 5 episodes. That's really fantastic. That speaks not only to the growing popularity of the show, people are getting on that bandwagon. One of the benefits of a weekly release schedule, people feel they can catch up. But more people are obviously subbing to HBO Max, and you're seeing that content spread out its audience from just HBO, and its numbers are growing on Nielsen charts. Very exciting. Very exciting. Netflix also had a solid hit with that Reese Witherspoon and Ashton Kutcher Valentine's Day movie, one of only 3 to make the overall chart, and that was number 2 on the movies chart. The originals chart, though, pretty bleak over here. No originals are exciting anybody besides You. Ginny and Georgia, still going strong, and Poker Face is a success for Peacock. But look at how low these numbers are outside of You. I mean, yikes. It's nice to see My Dad the Bounty Hunter make it on here, but that number is ridiculously low. These numbers are very poor. Over on Netflix's own charts, We Have a Ghost and Strays are still the top 2 movies for the second week in a row. This is a week. And don't forget, this is just for last week. Netflix is a lot more topical than Nielsen. And I'm sad to say The Woman King, after just 2 weeks, has fallen out of the top 10. That's too bad. And in shows, Outer Banks is also still number 1 from its debut last week. Over on iTunes, everyone's getting ready for the Oscars tonight with a lot of awards contenders in the top 10 and a few recent theatrical releases are also doing very well per usual. As for this coming week, Shazam 2 is the first DC movie to hit theaters since James Gunn and Peter Safran promised a partial reboot. Will audiences still pay full price for a movie that is unlikely to matter in a year or so? We'll find out! There's also Willem Dafoe's new thriller, Inside, and yet another film from Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin right after 80 for Brady, which, you just saw in the top 10 on iTunes. And, of course, their popular Netflix show, which ran for many seasons, just wrapped, Grace and Frankie. So that's in theaters. Now, with streaming movies, Hulu has The Boston Strangler on Friday with Keira Knightley. I just watched my screener for that. I'm afraid to say it's only medium. Mindhunter, it is not. I thought the first act was pretty good, and then it got boring, and I thought they left a lot out, and I thought a lot of it didn't seem substantiated. It's one of those movies where you start Googling while you're watching it. So you know what I'm talking about. But I don't know. I think there's other stuff that's more worth your time. But, if you're desperate, as I said, you can at least eat your food with it and then start Googling. That's exactly what I did. All right, and then Netflix has animated movie The Magician's Elephant. While again, CB hits digital Tuesday. Oh, that's great all the way through. As for shows, big week. Superman and Lois returns Tuesday night, along with new show Gotham Knights, which is actually being released. Well, Ted Lasso returns with season 3. Is it the last season? I don't think it is, but it might be. That returns on Apple TV starting on Wednesday. That's a weekly release. It's going up against Mando. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I'm surprised to see that. Of all the days of the week that Apple TV could pick, they decided to do that. But I don't know if anyone could compete. Mando's very soft right now. But of course, we don't know what's coming down the pipeline in terms of reveals. But right now, they're evenly matched. And the entire second season of Shadow and Bone drops Thursday on Netflix. I'm trying to get through my screeners. It's actually pretty good, but it's just been so long since the last season. It's tough. It's tough to get back into it. And then on Friday, Netflix has Agent Elvis with Matthew McConaughey now voicing the great one, the king. Prime Video drops the entire season of Swarm from the mind of Donald Glover. While Apple TV debuts the first 3 episodes of Extrapolations, its ridiculously star-studded, yet not very well-reviewed new series. And of course, tonight is busy. Oh my goodness. You've got the season finale of The Last of Us. My breakdown is done. I wanted to make sure it dropped as soon as that wrapped. It's only 42 minutes long, but my breakdown will be ready as soon as you finish watching it. And then of course, it's going up against the Oscars, which decided to pull in some last-minute muscle with the debut of the first full trailer for The Little Mermaid, which I think is going to eclipse everything tonight. And so I think it was actually a mistake to release this trailer because I don't think anyone's going to be talking about the Oscars. I think everyone's going to be talking about The Little Mermaid. I certainly will. I'll be covering it, full coverage, reaction, and breakdown tonight, along again with my Last of Us breakdown for that season finale. As for the Oscars, I will be doing a full review of the show, what I've seen in it, and the winners, because as soon as that Little Mermaid trailer drops, I'm out of there, as I think are most people. But I'll be doing a live stream to talk about the Oscars tomorrow. So anyway, all that coverage right here. So that's this week's movie math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what do you think of how well Paramount, Amazon, MGM, and Sony are doing against the big dogs? And what do you think the big dogs need to do to get back in here? Share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today so you don't miss any of that upcoming coverage. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.